So it's time for our last panel at this conference. Thanks again for coming, and Marlene will be moderating our last panel. Marlene?
Thank you, Sergey. Thank you for all being here. So that's our 9th panel already. We have been really very good and serious, and we will continue to be for the last panel. We have 3 speakers who are here in real, and a 4th speaker who will be digitally present with us. So I will begin by giving the floor to Martina Klicperova from the Academy of Science of the Czech Republic, discussing character assassination typologies with a specific focus on show trials.
Thank you very much. Hello, friends and colleagues. Great conference. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Martina Klicperova Baker. I am affiliated with the Czech Academy of Sciences with the Institute of Psychology.
And you were one of the first presenters.
Okay, yes, one of the first presenters in Heidelberg. That's true. I'm also affiliated with CARP for many years, pre-Heidelberg generation. Right? That's true. Thank you. I must confess, though, that psychology of or character assassination is not my primary research topic. I'm mostly devoted to psychology of democracy, civic culture, civic nationalism, civility, preconditions or psychological preconditions for democracy. But I believe that the character assassination is very much related to the civic culture and political culture, and certainly to civility. Well, we know that character attacks or character assassination attempts have many forms. Here is just a little collection of the latest ones from the United States. They range from very superficial attacks on how people look, how they dress, whether they have poor taste in fashion, and there are less superficial attacks on people's religion or their sexual behavior, sexual orientation. And then most of the character attacks are focused on substance, on character, on integrity, on competence. Here is a little flashback on Howard Dean as he was framed by the media into his enthusiasm was framed into madness. John McCain, his goodwill and good character of adopting a dark flesh daughter was abused in the campaign as that he's fathering a black child out of wedlock. And here in the middle you see George W. Bush. Gosh, My Pet Goat sure is a good book, which is a point on his activity, or actually inactivity, after 9/11 attack. So, starting with a new field as character assassination, we are trying to polish the terms, polish the concepts, and also to find orientation in the characterization of all the phenomena. So we are trying to find typologies and name different categories and dimensions of the phenomena. One of the most recent published typologies is Sergey's typology in the Sage Encyclopedia. But we also heard some other typologies yesterday.
Well, that's Eric's typology, which I borrowed for
okay.
encyclopedia.
So let's okay. Let's
thanks again for
the reference to Eric. And and the founding fathers actually presented some more typologies yesterday. So this is a contribution to it, and maybe, well, I would like to present this as another attempt to elaborate on the categorization and finding important dimensions in the field that we are looking at. So here are the dimensions I'm suggesting: target, time perspective, direction and methods, and nature of attacks. I would like to bring your attention, the first one, target. And I would like to bring your attention to an interesting paradox. We are talking of character assassination, but in fact, most of the work we are doing, most of the attention is focused on attack on the public image of victim's character. So character assassination typically is not assassinating the character of the victim, but it's an attempt to attack its image, the reputation, his or her image and reputation. But we can still differentiate from a real character attack, attacking at the character, attacking the character of the person. Let me clarify a little bit more the two things. Attack on the public image is executed through lies and gossips, and it is really the character of the character of the victim stays intact, but it's basically the image that is destroyed or can be destroyed. Well, if we talk about the attack on the character itself, that has different methods: provoking, corrupting, tricking, forcing the victims to behave against their conscience, reporting on others, forced loyalty oath, and such. So, little illustration. This is the Nazi loyalty oath of the judges. Below it, you see the loyalty oath of the Nazi clergy. And this is a loyalty oath of the whole population. Well, not whole population, but big chunk of the population in Prague, which happened after the terror period, after assassination of Heydrich, 1942. You see the whole Václavské Square full of people and, yep, behaving pretty loyally at that point. And we know that this may be just a surface gesture, but as psychologists, we know that that goes deeper. If you make a little loyalty oath just as a role, it doesn't mean that you are not destroyed internally. It's maybe really a step to character assassination. The real one, not just on the surface. Another dimension, maybe time perspective. Most of the attacks are happening now and are meant for the future. Direct attacks on a current victim, future politician. But we also know of the attacks to the past, misinformation about the past, erasing memory of the past. And again, just little illustrations from the historical examples. Here you see that's from the Stalinist era. Photos were manipulated according to Stalin's wishes, either to put the dictator in a better light or to remove a person that became uncomfortable. People were disappearing, they were destroyed, they were attacked, and they were killed, and then they had also to be removed from the documents. So here you see Comrade Abel Yenukidze, the gray-haired man from the Uzbek Communist Party, suddenly disappearing on the right. He is erased, and his comrade gets a new coat and even a little buttonhole, more buttons, a little pen in the pocket. Pre-Photoshop era. Here again, the Comrade Stalin with his friends and colleagues, and one by one disappearing. 4, 3, 2, 1, and then there was none, right? If you are more interested in this, there's an excellent book, The Commissar Vanishes. Another dimension, direction. Another dimension, methods. Methods can be verbal and visual or physical. Direction may be either directly attacking directly the subject, or smearing relatives, friends, institutions, symbols, archives, etc. And last but not least, another attempt at categorization. One dimension, relevance. Is it relevant? Is the attack relevant to the role of a politician? Is it about character and competence, or is it about hairdo or such things? And the other important dimension, fact-based or false. So if you look again at the vignettes from the beginning, down on the left, the fact-based, the hairdos are really, or the fashion is not really beautiful, but it's completely irrelevant to the political function. Upper right, the attack on Howard Dean, yes, it was relevant because it was about character and temperament, but it was absolutely fabricated, absolutely false. And then, of course, if we are talking this, there is a current controversy about the current American president, and we have actually discussed yesterday that the outstanding psychologist and psychiatrist made a comment about which was very relevant and seems pretty factual about his character and temperament and competence. So maybe a question for discussion or for thinking. Are character assassination attempts or are character attacks by definition always ethically negative? Well, perhaps not. If they are relevant and if they are fact-based, then they are justified, and I would dare to say they are necessary. We have to fight back. Especially the relevant and fact-based character attacks should be morally condoned. So these were the dimensions I'm suggesting. And in the remaining time that I have, I would focus on character attack that is a prototype of the most direct, most physical, most relevant, fabricated, and that is example of show trials. That's actually an example of the ultimate character attack, ultimate assassination, character assassination that really ends with assassination quite often. Show trials, show proces, pokazatelný proces, politický proces. The name itself describes what is it about, but just briefly. Show trials, widely publicized trials, with a predetermined judgment and political goal. Show trials in their extreme form are ultimate cases of character assassination. First, innocent victim is accused of irredeemable character flaws and forced to self-accusation. Then a screenplay of the trial is written in advance. It contains attributes of terrorism. It's very violent, and very often it contains randomness. Not even a friend and colleague of Stalin could be sure. And the death sentence, that's a really genuine assassination. Show trials, I will not talk about the Soviet period. Dr. David Brandenberger mentioned it quite well yesterday, extensively. I would like to point out that there were also other trials in the satellite states, and I would like at least briefly mention the case of Dr. Milada Horáková, that before the communists started to attack each other, they attacked the Democrats, and she was an example of a fantastic Democrat that was very brave and a kind of an early feminist during the democratic period, very brave under Nazism. She was sentenced to concentration camps, survived that, and then she was attacked as a Democrat by the Soviets. There were Soviet advisors that came. There was really a screenplay, a script of the trial. But what is striking, why I also want to mention this, it was not just the character assassination of the image of her, but what was related to the process was also organized popular anger and really corruption of people. The communists infiltrated factories and workplaces, and they were encouraging people to write petitions to the court for her to be assassinated as soon as possible. So this is an example which was signed or approved by 3,000 workers, but there were about 6,000 letters like that. That was really character assassination of the people, very methodical. Not just lock her up, but hang her. You know, that was the chant of the day. There was Winston Churchill. This is a letter of Albert Einstein trying to free her. Anyway, very briefly, so this I wanted to point out, but also the fact that the show trials, that's not just politics, but it's also, if we look in the past, we can think of religious trials, because the Inquisition really had, it was a period of totalitarianism, religious totalitarianism, Giordano Bruno, Jan Hus, witch trials, you are interested, there is an excellent movie, Witch Hammer, and novel about it, how political it was. Softer versions of the show trials, we can think of McCarthyism, Scope's monkey trial. And maybe a question, some show trials may be morally acceptable, especially if they are not the pure show trials with all its phenomena. We can think of a show trial and show execution of Nicolae Ceausescu at the end of 1989, which I believe really saved many lives, because it shortened Romanian, pretty much almost civil war in the streets and Christmas, 89. We could even argue that Nuremberg trials had some aspects of a show trial, which is morally condoned and very morally positive. And so just the parting thoughts here. We are able to educate people about dangers of internet bullying, sexual abuse, or identity fraud. But it is vitally important to teach history and civic self-defense. It is important to raise factual criticisms and wage justified character attacks when necessary. These fact-based and relevant, I would think, are pretty much justified. And most important media for such education, I believe, are public, non-commercial media, beginning from the public schools to public radio, TV, reputable journals, and internet sources. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Martina. We have time for a few questions. Yes.
To address your point about the justification, about the fact that some character assassination attempts may be justifiable, I wanted to ask you, do you think there's a difference between character impeachment, meaning addressing serious flaws in someone's character, and character assassination, which implies unjust attacks on someone's public image or public image of their character?
Assassination is a rough word, right? It's a rough term. But I think character impeachment, if it is fact-based and relevant, it is morally justifiable. Actually, it's pro-social. So I think the revealing of real character, especially in a politician and political candidate, that's essential.
But doesn't that kind of imply a different idea from character assassination, which is basically not legitimate? It's based on issues that are not relevant, or false, just to destroy someone's reputation.
It depends on the definition, then. Yeah, that's different. We can use a softer term, character attack. But in a political fight, it's really a political war, and attacks. Some attacks are really important for democracy.
We have other questions.
Very often, politicians. That would be
Just a quick question. I was just curious about your call to use public media for disseminating information about these kinds of show trials.
Not only show trial, but also generally.
Generally speaking, in character assassination attempts, in the United States, I'm not sure that would work, because the public media is funded by the government. Well, a portion of it. There's a perception in the United States that public media, right?
Then the listeners, and then the corporation.
Right, but that the perception in the United States is that the commercial media is the free media. In other words, they are First Amendment media.
But still, people are tuning in BBC and even American TV.
Yes, so I'm just saying there might be a cultural aspect to using public media. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
At the same time,
But I'm afraid that commercialization is really the poison that.
Just say.
But I'm biased. I'm from Europe.
At the same time, if we look at what Jens was talking about in relation to CEOs and the use of scapegoating, some scapegoating processes could be seen as actual performance, and they pretty orchestrated and directed for the public audience for specific reason. It's a strategic type of performance. So to shift the guilt, to calm down the public, to pretty much address public outrage when crisis goes wrong. It could be really some tactic in strategic crisis communication in a way as well.
But I think in the United States they came to a breaking point. In the past, the news were news, and they were not interrupted with advertisements, and they were.
Your point well taken. I don't
Right.
dispute that.
So I'm afraid that that's at the point. That's the poison of the commercialization of the news is.
It is an
poisonous.
issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Last question.
Thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. I especially appreciate the distinction between character assassination of the person and then character assassination of the public image.
Mm-hmm.
And I think perhaps, and may I suggest that perhaps one visceral and startling and horrible part of at least the Iranian regime's use of character assassination in show trials today is this forced confession.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps you say it's the ultimate, show trials are the ultimate character assassination. And perhaps that's because it's a confluence of both the character assassination of the person and also of the public image. So morally, you're corrupted and it's also publicly displayed.
And not only the public image, but also the character of the public when they go along.
And then yes, and then the
Right.
yeah, and then the public themselves are indicted. Basically, they become enablers in the process.
And since we are quoting our sources, I should actually quote the source for this insight. I had the opportunity to talk to the brother of President Václav Havel, to Ivan Havel, and he actually, when I talked to him and writing the book about the character assassination of Václav Havel, Ivan Havel, his brother, actually pointed out, but you are talking character assassination. They never destroyed the character of my brother. And I said, yeah, you are right, actually, we are talking character assassination, but we are talking of the image.
Because he never confessed.
Because he never confessed and he stood his ground. But he didn't also live in the Stalinist era. It was a little bit different time frame, so we should be fair. But yeah, his character was never broken. And still we are talking character assassination, right? So I just wanted to point out the paradox of the term, of the concept.
Okay, thank you so much, Martina. Now I would like to give the floor to Farah Latif from George Mason University, discussing That Woman, the Fraud, and the Nasty Woman, all with quotation marks.
Thank you very much. I'm doing what I'm very good at, testing everybody's patience. Nobody wants to just go home now. So I am adjunct professor at George Mason University. My primary research area is U.S. public diplomacy. So I was interested in this topic at a much grander scale, delegitimization of governments and its institutions on that level. But as I got to think about it more, it was just a lot of fun. And then I started to think about the role social media plays in character assassinations, and was particularly interested in why some character assassination attacks may fail, whether they are based on facts or not. But with that, here is my topic, That Woman, the Fraud and the Nasty Woman, Vilification of Monica Lewinsky, Rachel Dolezal, and Hillary Clinton. So these are some very social media phenomena that make the understanding of character assassination a little more nuanced. And I observed that there are times when someone becomes famous or becomes a public figure after character assassination or because of it. And another interesting thing is about the perception of public and private individuals. We all probably have multiple online profiles. We all like to collect our likes and shares and friends and contacts. So within our micro universes, we all like to be celebrities and public figures. So if we have an online presence to an extent, are we really private individuals? And the last question that really interested me was about the, again, why are certain character assassination attacks may fail. Some people are readily forgiven for their offenses and others may not be. And then there were 3 other questions that were raised yesterday, which perhaps in the paper form I do a better job of answering, but here it may or may not be as clear, but I'll just give quick answers to what my understanding in online context suggests. The first was, Martina, I believe your question, whether the definition should be extended. And my answer to this would be no, because if it becomes everything, then what character assassination really is, if it's everything. So that's kind of my understanding of it. And then there were, I don't know if you gentlemen meant those as rhetorical questions, but if some information is based on truth, is it really character assassination? But if we, particularly if we look at celebrity lives, some information once it's out there and on internet, it's there forever. So some of their deviances may have been put to rest, forgiven for a time being, but they sometimes have a way of re-emerging. Also for the third question, if an attack fails to stick, is the accused considered a victim? And I will talk a little bit about typology of victims, and my understanding is that once the information is out there, once an attack has been made, that person is a victim of some sort. So, you know what character assassination is, but I got a little interested in the concept of vilification, which helps me out a little bit more here. Tactically, it's the same, but it allows me to include individuals, organizations, and private citizens in those that are being attacked and as victims of character assassination. And why is it important? It's important because in our today's life, brands are people, people are brands. If I announced that I stayed at Trump Towers and towels were dirty, it reflects on a person. But at the same time, if I say some accusation about CEO of Apple, that reflects on the organization. So people reflect brands and brands reflect people, and that distinction is hard to make. So now I come to Dem provided a very good explanation of what a victim is based on their level of agency, whether high or low, and agency agency refers to the level of their control or intentionality in the attack, and low or social evaluation, meaning their positive or negative public perception. So she provided 4 different types of victims based on whether they have high agency, low agency, high social evaluation, and in red I refer to the type of social support that they get. So if a precipitating victim is the one that is victim blamed, right? They're the person who had high control over their situation, but public perceives them negatively. They are to blame for the mess they are in. We blame them, we have low level of sympathy for them, whereas a heroic victim, we show admiration for them. They have high agency, they did the right thing, we admire them. Ideal victim is the sort of the dictionary definition of what a victim is. We show sympathy for them. They have good public perception, but things were out of their control. We may make some excuses for them. And the last one is the stigmatized victim. We pity them. They do not get a lot of sympathy. They are typically some underprivileged groups that are negatively perceived, but even if they have low agency in the situation. And here I argue the same typology that that Dunn used for victims can be applied to the attacker. So there, by in-character assassination scandal situation, there's always this dichotomy that exists. There is a victim or an attacker. Public perception decides who is the attacker, who's the victim. But the same type of typology can be used for the attacker. So we have the heroic attacker with positive public perception. Things were in their control. They chose to, that they're the whistleblowers. We admire them, we support them, right? And then they're the precipitating attacker. It's our close friend, Mr. Edward Snowden. It was his choice, but he does not get our admiration. Similarly, ideal attacker and stigmatized attacker will have the same line of logic as the victims. And again, the red shows how they are perceived socially, and I am mostly thinking in terms of social media, so I've not kind of thought about or testing it outside of media, so I will be willing to accept any criticism for that. So I will argue here that these are the 4 social drivers that social support depend on, but we'll talk about it after we talk about the ladies. Maybe one of the most famous living figures in the history, I cannot exaggerate enough, but Monica Lewinsky was the 24-year-old White House, former White House intern, and so at some point during this scandal, President Clinton decided to distance himself from her. He called her that woman. That's the name, the epithet that stuck with her. What we see is at the time, social media did not exist. But what did happen, a phenomena did take place after this scandal. The 24-hour news cycle emerged on internet. The sharing of jokes through emails started to take sort of a new push. It was propelled to a new extent. Similarly, we would have to imagine if social media existed at the time, what would have happened. We would have had a hashtag, the other woman, Monica Gate, and someone would have taken the Twitter handle, the blue dress, and then some cheeky brand manager would have tweeted, hey, at the blue dress, we can help you with that stain, and probably would have apologized and resigned in a week. And we would also have gotten some support for her. So this case I would explain just a little bit for our international visitors. So Rachel Dolezal was the spokesperson for the national, let me get the acronyms correct, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. She passed herself as Black, but in fact she was biologically white. And she was harshly criticized. She was criticized harshly, and the white people criticized her for taking on the reverse racial passing, and the Black community was outraged for her cultural cross-dressing and refusing to culturally footnote herself as, in fact, white. This is still an ongoing phenomenon. The woman, after Hillary Clinton was called nasty woman, took that hashtag as a badge of honor and ran with it, and it's still happening. So I will forgo the details, but I do want to go back to the social support and the social drivers that I believe are at work here. So fame refers to how well known these individuals are, and it works to humanize them. By fame, I mean how well known they are before an attack, before being victimized, or soon afterwards. So the sooner they become famous, they become humanized, the more social support they will gather. And similarly, a sensationalization here refers to how interesting or how unusual the accusations are. Is it just another person accused of a petty crime or something like this, or it's something more than that? And resonance is how within our own network of people, how much is that scandal, that victimization retweeted, talked about. And then the last one I believe is maybe the most important one, and it's how they act according to the social contract we have with their position or their title or their appearance or their social role that they have accepted. So I have put these three scandals to this test, and the more check boxes we can check, the more social support they will have. Again, it's situational, it depends on a time frame, and it's very situational for one particular topic at one particular time. But there are some other cases where I tested it, and it kind of results similarly. The Octomom, I am so tempted to give her honorable mention here. AJ Clementi, the weather guy, Justine Sacco, and again, we have other figures, public figures who, hip-hop artists who pass as Black without being criticized. So the practitioner in me is asking me, so what? Maybe something like this can help us manage crises better, predict crises. I believe there may be a predictive nature to this type of conceptualization, and maybe we can predict the longevity of the attack. And yeah, any questions? Yes.
It's actually not a question, but rather the suggestion. I think this this problem of social media character assassination or character attack should be also looked at the dimension of the length of it, because there are the Twitter storms. I mean, like when it all happens in one day. Like an outburst of personal slurring and so on, is typically one thing. But
Right.
the low intensity conflict, which develops, and finally bridges out and goes from social media to sort of to broadcast media, is a completely different thing. Because while finding the weak spots on the personality, on public image of the personality, social media kind of finds the key to how to most exquisitely destroy the person or the cause.
Thank you.
Congrats on research. I really enjoyed listening to your wonderful presentation. And the question is, so when does the target of a character assassination campaign become a victim? Who decides?
I would say as soon as the information is public, and as I said before, I'm looking solely in social media, so once the information's out there, it's permanent, and that's the instant that person becomes a victim.
So the public decides whether it's a victim or just a target?
I believe the attacker decides.
But victim can also decide. But if victim accepts that he's being attacked and counterattacks and sort of starts to debunk, I mean, it's also the fact of the attack. I mean, sometimes, like, you find about the attack only when attacked, the victim of the attack actually tries to debunk it.
So in my defense, then I would say again, the attacker decided that they are making that attack because of permanence of social media online world. Maybe the victim does not do anything. Maybe he debunks, but what if that attack resurfaces when he cannot defend himself? So it's the nature of internet, I guess, kind of makes it decision of the attacker. Once it's done, it's there, it's permanent, and I believe the attacks may fade at times, but they can resurface. They will never go away.
And the victim may not be even aware of it that he is a victim.
Well, the thing
In the
is,
beginning.
they're talking about the mentality of the victim. Sometimes, actually, I agree with Ms. William that it happens if you think you're a victim, not just a target. I mean, you are become more vulnerable. But well, because I study mass media, sometimes it's decided before the public opinion.
I'm sorry. So I think you're talking about the psychology of victimization, and that's what I'm not. I am talking more of the public perception, how it's presented to public, and
Well, sorry, I mean, we have now in Russia a perfect, I mean, people who speak Russian know that Navalny has just launched an absolutely devastating, any other society, devastating attack on the Russian Prime Minister. And actually, you use this word. I mean, Medvedev, who in Russia is considered to be peachy, I mean, his the hashtag when you want to sort of not to say Medvedev, you use hashtag peachy, жалкий, which is very humiliating for a man and so on. So the attack is devastating. But actually what they decided to do, they just don't give a shit about that. They don't respect it as an attack. And they start to attack the attacker.
Well, so that goes back to the question, can this be seen as a character assassination if there is no character in the first place? So if a person is not recognized by the public as having a certain social status or being respected enough, so any type of character assassination campaign against that person is a waste of money and resources, because the public says, well, you know, if there is no character in the first place, can this be seen as a character assassination?
I think it's more to political scientists that show up.
so this is what the first social driver addresses here, fame.
So I've got a microphone, so I'm just going to plunge in and ask a question. Actually, first, thank you, because the questions that we posed yesterday were not rhetorical, so we very much appreciate your input. I've got one brief remark and two questions, I guess. The remark is I was interested how you characterized Edward Snowden, and perhaps it's also coming from a US perspective, because I think in Europe there would certainly be many people who would classify him as an heroic attacker in your scheme, I think. My question was, the first question is, did I understand correctly that you would answer that we should limit the definition of character assassination to individuals, because otherwise it becomes so broad that it becomes meaningless? And the second question is, what did that weather guy do to get fired on the first day?
I want to know too.
So thank you for your comment, and the answer to your first question is yes. I found it in a completely different context, but I am researching diasporas. What is a diaspora community? And the label has gotten so broad that it has lost all types of meaning. There is no characterization of what, who, or why a diaspora constitutes. So with that fear in mind, I wanted to yell, no, 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 yesterday. And remind me your second question.
The weather guy.
The weather guy, he said a bad word on live TV, and he was fired on day one. So that reminds me of one other distinction that I have to make here, is that I do not include any social phenomena or anyone who becomes famous from doing something wrong. A movie clip goes viral. I am talking about individuals who become famous on social media, and they are affected by it for a long time. Their livelihoods are affected. So basically, he became unhireable. He was fired on day one.
Character suicide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's take last question.
Just a short one. Yesterday, Martin told about character assassination in the past. And I think it's extremely interesting, because now we speak about the present, in present tense, about people who are living now, and we basically can ask them, do they feel themselves victims or not, and so on. Do you think all that methodology which you presented so brilliantly, may it be used in discussions about history, about events that happened before, like the stage trials or whatever, killing of character association of great public figures of the past who are not alive now, and social media did not exist then, but similar processes took place anyway. So is it possible to use this for historical analysis, historical description, or you think about your methods only as something that can be applied to ongoing processes?
I think the typologies of victimization and attackers can be used to cases in the past, but the social support, this can probably would not be wise because we do not have all this present knowledge about them, their fame or the news being newsworthy or sensational, and the resonance of the issues, and also social context. Some of those individuals may not be relevant to us in present. So this part, I would say will not work, but the typologies of victims and attackers, they will work.
Great, thank you so much. That was wonderful, thank you. Now I would like to give the floor to Mikhail Nemtsev, independent researcher based here now in Washington, coming from Russia originally, discussing the famous Pussy Riots case.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. I'm sorry I cannot find it. There are so many presentations here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I will present a kind of case study of character attack, which happened recently in Russia, and in this way I switch from the studies of general theory and general great subjects like countries and governments and so on to a story of a person who somehow got to under public attention and harsh public scrutiny, and whose reputation was somehow damaged, although not totally destroyed. And this case is known to many of those who sit here, and Russians, not Russians, I think. So I think it might be interesting, like a good ending of this long and very interesting session. Witnesses of Hen against Pussy Riot, public sexuality is a double-edged weapon. Case of so-called punk Maleben produced by Pussy Riot in February of 2012 is well known, I think, to almost everyone. Several girls arrived to a main church in the very center of Moscow, in Moscow downtown, and did there something. So they somehow interrupted this very, very calm place where almost nobody was in there. And that very night, a video was released on YouTube.com. And this video just rocketed to public attention in the next days. And it's less than 2 minutes in length. So I would say it's the most, in terms of length and influence, is the most successful video produced in the recent history of Russia. So, okay, so, and then what followed next? Somehow I think I damaged this site, so timeline go down, I'm sorry for that. Okay, so I'll tell them just orally. In the several days, a criminal case was opened, and in March, 3 participants of that group, Pussy Riot group, were arrested in Moscow and held. And in 2 weeks, they were named prisoners of consciousness by Amnesty International. So a great wave of international support for them emerged, and here you can see Madonna on the left, and this caption from South Park on the right. This caption is basically a reflection of the whole history, because it appeared later. In the summer, in the end of August, the trial began, and they were sentenced to 2 times in a penal colony, and in a year and a half they were released by general amnesty. Now that Pussy Riot actually exists, but that participants of this big group who were taking part in this event, they officially are not members of Pussy Riot anymore. So I won't speak about them. Basically, I'm interested in this short period in the summer of 2012, then they became international superstars, and people in Russia were engaged in extremely harsh discussion about them, how they should be persecuted or they should be released. If they can't be released, they must be punished somehow. So how? That would be a relevant persecution for them. So a kind of a defamation campaign began, and I would draw your attention to a letter produced in July 18 by some public movement for morality, Движение за нравственность, one of the numerous fake organizations which sometimes emerge in Russia. They publish some letter or petition for persecution of someone, usually, and then disappear again. There are plenty of them. So they produced a letter which played some important role in the future history of the public reputation of Pussy Riot. And I present a translation which is awkward, but I would say that the language of this letter is very, very, very bad language. In Russian, it's very bureaucratic, so I tried to mock this bureaucratic way of speaking. Recently, a wide public resonance received the trial of citizens Maria Alexina, Ekaterina Samutsevich, and Nadezhda Tolokonnikova, who organized the provocation of the Church of the Christ the Savior. This event provided Alekina, Samutsevich, and Tolokonnikova with a scandalous fame. Thereby, the previous action also gained considerable publicity. So here they present a kind of history of this group, which is, in fact, is not a history of this group, and this is a history of one of its members, also the most bright one. Namely, an outrageous act of incredible moral degradation that consisted in engaging into a public sexual act inside of the zoological museum, beloved and frequently visited by Moscow residents with their families, along with a filthy act in a supermarket during which Ekaterina Samutsevich inserts a frozen hand into her genitalia in public. It's terrible that there were many customers in the supermarket in that very moment, and the scene was observed by children. This reference to children is typical in morally based character assassination. So you can do anything but you want, but you damage children who could see it, so you are guilty in advance. You should think that your actions must not be seen by anyone, and particularly by any children. What is important here is that Ekaterina Samutsevich is named as this main villain, soon after publication, she would gradually disappear from the public attention, and on the first stage came Nadezhda Tolokonnikova, who is, in a sense, the most bright person of the period. And she became an open spokesperson for the whole Pussy Riot that summer. It is told that first they were engaged in an act of public sexual act, and then she inserts a frozen hand into her genitalia. Such a nasty activity, right? Next day, one of the deputies of the State Duma initiates an official expertise of video clip produced by group Vaina. And the Vaina is a bar. And the day after day, on the first channel, the most popular TV channel in Russia, and one of the most respected and popular program, Человек и Закон, which deals with different legal issues, crimes and punishments and so on, produces an 18-minute story of group Vaina as a kind of prehistory of PR, of Pussy Riot. And they show the scene of public sex in zoological museum. Also, they do make no reference to the story of hen. It is important that this hen, a notorious hen, appeared in a program on the 5th channel, another influential channel in Russia, and you can see its mark on the caption, in the beginning of May. But somehow it waited to be activated until July. Then I'm sorry again for the text goes down there below the frame. I'm sorry. In July it was somehow activated and became a matter for a systematic campaign of character attack. But a couple of words about Group Vaina. Group Vaina, a bar, was established by several active philosophers and public intellectuals, semi-public intellectuals in Moscow and St. Petersburg in about 2028. It was a small milieu of activists who tried to produce performances somehow targeted at criticism of, sometimes harsh criticism of power, of state, society relations, and so on. Without any certain political statement, they made some performances in Moscow as well as in St. Petersburg. Some of them are now forgotten. Some of them became very well known in Russia. And Nadezhda Tolokonnikova was one of the young girls who was mingled with the core group of Vaina, and somehow she belonged to them. Also, Pussy Riot is not a part of Vaina; it's an independent enterprise of other activists. So her personal activity was connected to this history of that group. And what is interesting that once she really did participate in this action in the zoological museum, which is on the right caption, she can be recognized as this on the right side, right? And this became possible because all the actions of Group Vaina were very, very attentively documented by one of its participants, and Alexander Plutzer-Sarno, who is quite a strange person. He produced the multi-volume tome of Russian obscene lexics, so he used obscene words very creatively to produce long reports about the actions. So they are available in the net, and those who wanted to destroy the reputation of Pussy Riot could use that archive, which wasn't intended to be used in this very way. But anyway, Vaina provided that they prosecutors with a very good visual material. This action in a supermarket was somehow staged. So, in fact, nobody, of course, it's not possible, I think, right? Nobody did insert a frozen hen into vagina. It was somehow staged, and the video, which was used by Russian TV, as well as photos used by thousands of trolls in the net, and those who used it to destroy the reputation of Tolokonnikova. This video, as well as these photos, included several actions produced in different supermarkets and then connected together in one fake report about one fake event. So it was quite an interesting creative work with media, but this work happened in 2010, and in 2 years it resulted very interesting and unexpected continuation. Okay, so why was it so effective? Actually, it was really effective, and that was a question I was thinking about. I think that, well, I didn't say one thing. So in August, those who were was very active in mentioning hen every time that someone tried to discuss Pussy Riot in media, were called witnesses of hen. So the title of my presentation comes from there. Witnesses of hen are the people who extensively refer to that history of this hen. Every case, every time then you try to speak about PR, about Pussy Riot, and they really succeeded in that. So if you ask anyone, many people in Russia would say that this frozen hen is the first association that jumps in their mind, then you mention Pussy Riot. Why it was so effective, and why was it necessary? I would say that, and this is a question which I was thinking about when I got to know about the project of this conference, and I thought that character association is a good analytic tool to answer it. So it was a perfect, the action was a perfect embodiment of first of act of art, then a statement of a political resistance and teleological intervention and feminist intervention at the same time. So the Russians could see some, the whole world could see some very bright, energetic, attractive, feminine, and at the same time anonymized bodies standing here in a place where they are not supposed to be, and in a very direct way producing some statements about relations of theology, of supernatural sphere and Russian state. So it was important to destroy this very embodiment. That's why those who wanted to kill that, to murder the reputation of Tolokonnikova, needed to distract her as the bearer of a perfect female body, which was a symbolic vehicle of her reputation. And you can see here on the right caption, right? It was somehow reflected in some cartoons on the left and on the right side. So the authors of that cartoons belong to opposite political camps, but the basic idea is the same, right? So here we can see that this obscenity or this very idea of putting something inside of a body, and this frozen hen is something ugly and unpleasant in itself, is used to show the level of degradation and something to show, is important, is used to show that something is wrong with the body as well, and it means with the sense, with their morality and intellectuality, and their intellectual. So I would say that, I won't say, but I just won't mention that it seems to me that it is quite an important way to distract someone's action, to show that person who does something doesn't know how to use the body in a gender sense. So then you say that a politician is not good with women. It means he's a bad person, right? And if a woman is not good, cannot use in the right way her genitalia. She's a bad woman. She can't be respected, and it means she cannot be taken seriously. Then she says something about state, supernatural spheres, God, relations of the mother of the savior and the president, and so on. So that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry for that partial distraction of presentation.
Thank you.
It happens.
Some question for Mikhail.
Okay.
That's great. You're gonna have at least one question.
I guess this question is not only for you, but also for the previous speaker. And it was the discussion about the attack and the victim with Farah. And it reminded me of one of the three-part taxonomy that Eric presented yesterday of the victim and the villain and the vindicator. And that really context and audience is everything. And if you think about almost anybody like Edward Snowden, depending on context and audience, he's what? He is the victim, he is the villain, and he is the vindicator, right? So in bringing it back to Pussy Riot, and you put it into context and audience, and looking through those lenses, they could be all three, right?
Right. Well, I'm not sure I can use this typology now. Sorry, I must think of it. Because we have the case when a victim strikes back. And victim is quite creative in striking back. Coming back to the case of Pussy Riot, they made some speeches on trio, right? And they proved that they are smart intellectuals. So can a victim strike back? The victim is supposed to be, somehow to feel deprivation, to feel, I can't say this, I mean, then victim takes back its subjectivity and tries to insist on its line of behavior, on the principles, on its integrity. Is it still a victim? I don't know. I can't use this very word in this way. So speaking about the Pussy Riot case, I won't say they're not victimized to the end, so they could successfully strike back, and that's why the character assassination actually didn't happen. It was a good and very well staged character attack, which did not turn into a character assassination.
Well, but to the extent with solidarity.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I mean, here you mention one part of the character assassination that took place. That is namely how you characterize Pussy Riot as being victimized after the performance, as you call it. But then there is the other part of the story of character assassination, that you have this particular group going to the lead church in Moscow, and given the nature of the lyrics and what they did in their performance, is absolutely character assassination of the Moscow Patriarchate.
So we are back to the discussion.
Well, yes, that's a very interesting question, because there is a different way to perceive it. You know, there are some clerics who said that it was in strictly theological sense, it was a preach. So it was a they did not violate any rule of church. So technically speaking, they could preach to the God in this way. So and they were they did it in a strange way, of course. Unusual one, but not a canonic law was violated during that period, and it's a very interesting fact. So basically, they tried to make a critical attack against Patriarch Kirill and against Vladimir Putin, of course.
But it was like a prayer, right?
It was a prayer.
Right.
It was, they called it Pank Malebin. Malebin is a kind of prayer in Orthodox tradition.
Which would be appropriate for Protestant church, but not in Orthodox context?
Well, of course, well, if you go to and read the text, it is a prayer. If you follow their behavior, it doesn't look like a prayer, and we can see that in fact happened. This raw material from which this relic was made, they actually did not have time to do anything. The next 10 seconds, then they entered this sacred part of the church. They were just expelled by security. So people reacted not to the actual event, but to the media product. Which sometimes, in a sense, is curious, because the whole church was infuriated about the media product, about something that did not happen, in fact. And it raises a very hard question, a complicated question about the very ontology of media, and the ontology of what is a crime, what is an assassination, and so on. But going back to the church, yes, it was perceived somehow as an attack, but our persons inside of Russian media directly discussed that case as a very, very strange way to vindicate the supernatural, because they seriously addressed to the Mother of God. There was not a hint of cynicism in what they did, and in this sense, it might be understood as a direct attack against the patriarch, but be he a more smart person, in the sense he could easily appropriate it and use it for enforcement of church influence. But instead, he decided that the church must insist on the punishment on the punishment.
Speaking of that, Greg Simons is speaking more about marketing strategies of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Yeah, for whoever wants to join us tomorrow, George Washington University, Greg Simons will be talking about the Russian Orthodox Church, foreign and domestic policy. Do we have other questions for Mikhail? No? At 5. No, in the morning we'll all be sleeping. Okay, thank you very much, Mikhail.
Thank you.
Okay, so for our last presentation, we will be going to India. Our last presenter, she's not here today, but she sent a video. Her name is Kanwalpreet Baidwan, and she's working on the election in India and on the comedy and satire going on around the Indian election. So she sent a video which is relatively long, so I took the arbitrary decision to kind of reduce it and give you a shorter version of it. So you will have to kind of dive directly in the main core of her presentation. You know that India is a democratic country with a lot of parties and very lively political fights. And she's studying, especially in that case, the situation in the Punjab province, and she's showing how many candidates are kind of fighting with each other, and also how some satirical elements are used in terms of character assassination during the political campaign. So here you can see the 5 candidates. No, that doesn't work. How do I get the
That's a good question.
screen back? Yeah. Okay, so I selected about 10 minutes where she's presenting the main kind of character assassination or satirical elements going on against each of the 5 candidates. And I will just ask you to then try to follow what she's presenting us because we are not watching till the beginning.
Party, and the man in the cap is Arvind Kejriwal, who is the leader of the A party or the Common Man's Party. In this slide, we see Captain Amrinder Singh, who is leading the Indian National Congress in Punjab. Now, Captain Amrinder Singh is a descendant of the rulers of the erstwhile Patiala state, which was a princely state once upon a time. So the people call him Maharaja, that is the Grand King, and this is the butt of many jokes by the opposition. Now, Captain Amrinder Singh has made a lot of attempt at criticizing the Badals who lead the Shiromani Akali Dal. He says, "Haste khelde Punjab kangal karta." He says that the Badals have driven the once happy, prosperous Punjab state into bankruptcy. Now, the sale of drugs, the smuggling of drugs, was a major issue in these elections, and it is said that the Shiromani Akali Dal and the Badals are into the smuggling, of drugs. Now, Captain Amrinder Singh, as well as the other Congress leaders, say that drugs are so easily available in Punjab that they are delivered to your doorstep more quickly than a pizza. This has made the voters smile, but this also tells the people that how serious the situation is in Punjab. Besides this, Captain Amrinder Singh has raised the slogan in the 2007 elections, "Save Punjab from ruin, defeat the Badals." Now, the next slide is of the grand old man of Punjab politics, Prakash Singh Badal, who holds the record of once being the youngest chief minister of any state, and now at 90 he is the oldest serving chief minister of Punjab state. Now, how does he do character assassination, comedy, and smear campaign on his rivals? He calls Arvind Kejriwal, who leads the A party, and Captain Amrinder Singh as paper tigers. And he says that these paper tigers have made the cyberspace their new theatre, and once the election verdict is out, which will be in favor of the Akali party, the Shiromani Akali Dal, these paper tigers will retire back into their dens, one to his palace in Patiala, and that is Captain Amrinder Singh, and the other to Delhi, where he is the chief minister, that is Arvind Kejriwal. And he says the A party, the Common Man's Party, which won 4 seats in Punjab in the last parliamentary elections, nowhere else in India but in Punjab, he says AAP has no history, AAP has no background. And what he says about AAP is that they are like wild mushrooms which you find growing in the villages in the countryside, so they're not to be taken very seriously. Now, he has appealed to the people in a very funny way, and he says at the age of 90 that if you want to see me live for another 10 years, you have to vote for me. You, the electorate, are the people who can keep me alive for the next 10 years. And he says Kejriwal should not and will never be able to find a place in the people's heart. Why? Because he wears a cap. Now, in Punjab, the turban, the headgear is, and the sixth attachment to the turban, because of their gurus, is a very touchy point. And here he says a cap wala, a topi wala cannot become the chief minister of Punjab. Once upon a time, it was Prakash Singh Badal who spoke against the dynasty rule of the Gandhis at the center. But now, he and his family have become a victim of the dynasty rule. He has inducted his son, his daughter-in-law, his daughter-in-law's brother, as well as his own son-in-law into politics. 5 people in the cabinet, which is again the butt of jokes of all the people. And what does he call Captain Amrinder Singh? A king of palaces, who should retire into the palace because he has a feudal mindset, and a king who gets up at 12 o'clock cannot come into contact with the masses. The next slide is of the person sitting on the weighing scales is Bikram Singh Majithia, one of the relatives of Badals, who is blamed for smuggling drugs in Punjab. So he is the butt of many jokes. Now, Prakash Singh Badal's son, that is Sukhbir Badal, comes up with his own way of character assassination and smear campaign. He says that Kejriwal is the biggest stupid in India. Bevkoof, he uses the word Bevkoof, that is stupid, for a leader who is of national stature. He calls Captain Amrinder Singh and his colleagues, his coterie, as a coterie which is corrupt, a corrupt coterie, and he calls Captain Amrinder Singh not as Commander-in-Chief but as Commander-in-Thief. And then he calls his secretary Ash Cash Secretary. That means that Ash means to have fun, that these people are having fun by hoarding people's wealth. Now, the other slide, the next slides are of the new entrant, that is the A.V party. Maan na maan, aap se pareshan. That you agree, that Kalital and Congress may agree or they do not agree, but they know that the A.V party is here to stay. Now, one of the leaders of A.V party, that is Bhagwant Maan, really draws crowds to his rallies in a very funny way. Now, there are many folk songs in Punjab, and there is one folk song which girls sing when they come back to their parents' house after marriage, which goes as Kikli Kalir di Pag Mere Veer di Dupatta Par Jayega Phitte Mujhe Vaega, which means that hey friend, come here, my brother wears a turban, I'm proud of it, his wife, my sister-in-law, has a robe, but I don't care who hoots for the son-in-law of the family, that is a husband. Now, Bhagwant Maan has made a new song which is drawing crowds to his rally. He says, Kikli Kalirdi, Gap Sukhbirdi, that Harsimrat Badal is saying, Harsimrat Badal is the daughter-in-law of Prakash Singh Badal, wife of Julian Badal. She says, Kikli Kalirdi, Gap Sukhbirdi, Chitta Mere Paida, border to Mangaida, Kartar Pachaida, Das Kinna Chaida. That my husband Sukhbir Badal promises the moon. My brother is into smuggling. We deliver it at your doorstep. We get it from the border. Tell us how much you want. This is a direct attack on an allegation of drug smuggling, which is not true, but that is why he's so popular. Then he says, if you diagnose the blood of the Badals, you will not find red blood, you will find white blood, because it's all drugs, because they smuggle drugs. And he says, Beiman Pajao, Punjab Pajao, that make the corrupt scoot and save Punjab. Now, this makes the elections in Punjab very funny. Now, Bhagwant Maan tells the people that while the Badals and the Congress hold wealth, you should not be happy with lollipops. Now, this lollipop makes people smile. Now, as you've seen, the election symbol of the...
I will stop the video here because then she's moving into another topic and we will need to watch the entire video and also to have seen the first minute that I cut. So, but that just was giving you a kind of insight into character assassination in Indian politics, and as you can see, it's a very lively political field. So on that, we will be closing our session and more globally the conference, and being the last chair, I have the privilege maybe to say one word in the name of all the participants, to say that it was really a wonderful conference, that I think we were all very impressed to see this new research field emerging like that and taking shape during this weekend. So we are all very grateful to the organizer, to Sergey, to Martin, to Jennifer and Eric, and to all the volunteers that you had with you that really helped us a lot for the conference. So thank you so much.
We have to thank you all for joining this cause, because without you, this conference would have been possible. And you know, really, I mean, a lot of you have provided wonderful, great insights, things that we haven't thought of before, issues and questions we haven't considered, and actually provide a lot of food for thought. So I guess this is the first step, this is the first beginning, and I think it was very successful in terms of scholarship, in terms of inquiry, in terms of interest, enthusiasm, and I guess public support and camaraderie as well.
Yeah, I can only confirm what Sergei has been saying. These last 2 days has really given us a lot of input and have generated a lot of new ideas, and I'm also very happy to hear that it's not just ourselves that have been inspired and have gotten these ideas, but that others have also felt that they can get something out of this and pick this up and take this further. So we definitely hope to see you back at our next event. Who knows when, who knows where. Maybe Prague, we'll see. But we definitely hope to see you there, and we thank you all for attending, and we thank you all for contributing. So thank you very much.